built the conventional snub nose and kind of help me get yeah, right. Kind of. All right, well, that's cool. And then a truck fell on me and crushed me. And well, prior to that, I was just also, if you haven't noticed, my name is Tom Sawyer. Yeah, exactly. And first of all, with a name like that, you have to have a certain character. You have to be okay, if you know what I mean. You can't be too straight, you can't be too cool. And partially because of the name and because of some of the physical activities that I did in high school, track, swimming, cross country, things like that. And then finally turned to bicycle racing, pedal type bicycle racing. I became popular around the class comedian in high school, way back in the olden days in 1964, when they still had propellers and airplanes. At any rate, so my life has been rather diversified, and I've done all the things you've done, had a real good time. And then I also worked as a mechanic, an automotive mechanic, got into race cars, drag race cars, worked with David Troyer, all the good guys that some of you might know. And of course, having mechanical abilities, naturally, I'm going to repair and fix my own cars and trucks. And I had race trucks. I never had race cars myself. I always had race pickup trucks. And that day on May 24th, 1978, I was repairing changing the shocks and doing some front end work on the truck and being very safety conscious. I had the rear wheels blocked as I should have, and had 6x6 timbers, 2 each on either side under the frame, and some store-bought jack stands, no jack stands, under the front bumper or where the front bumper is on the frame. And all the safety stuff, and using an 8-ton hydraulic jack with a nice oak plank underneath it. And had the truck jacked up quite high and was lying on a mechanic's creeper on my back, working on the truck leg. And the truck fell. And of course, well, how did the truck fall? Well, it's real simple. The driveway gave way. And underneath the asphalt was a pocket of air, or whatever, maybe from quicksand or whatever. And it had the tendency to make the jack fall down a little bit and then tip this way, which gave the effect of taking the truck and moving it over, which was a really nasty thing to do. And it's really funny because I've been asked, and if I could guarantee that the same thing would happen, that did happen, I'd jump under the truck right now, because the physical pain and the traumatic experience of having a truck come down and hurt you and be hurt for a couple weeks afterwards. The pain and the agony is absolutely nothing compared to what I'd gotten out of it and the experience that I had. I'm sure most of you have heard of a near-death experience. Near-death experience is just a general term that has become popular, and it refers to a parapsychological apparition of sorts, in that you come to perceive or come to know things. You might say you just see it, or you come to know it, and it's rather in the abstract, in that you don't have anything to show for it. Like, I can't say, see, this is what it looked like, and I can't draw a picture of it. There are some, I think the word is facsimiles of certain aspects of the typical near-death experience. If you can use your own imaginations in the dark tunnel and the light, and of course the light is just a bright white light, as though you would see it, but it just means so much more, and I'll go into a description of the accident and what it seemed like, what it appeared like, and so on. Also, before I do that, at the I think there's only one copy at the Rundle Library, and if anybody is interested in the scientific aspects of it, now what this book contains is more or less like a textbook. It's a little bit different than what Raymond Moody has written, in that it very basically picks up what Raymond Moody did, and that he sort of introduced the subject on a rather scientific level, and described certain aspects of it, and then people have come to know the typical near-death experience. In other words, there's like stages that some people only go to stage 1 or experience stage 1. Some go to what's commonly known as stage 5 or a core experience, and that is coming in a confrontation with the light, not just seeing it and feeling the love and peace that I'll describe. This is really a good book, and it's the type of book that you can read like this, and then just say, oh, does it matter how one dies? Well, that interests me. And read the paragraph. And not wanting to read a whole book, you can go to 3 or 4 chapters later. Or do the thing that I do often is look at the table of contents and search for correlates. Well, who cares about the correlates, So don't read that. Forget it. Just glance at it, read. I recommend this book, not because Dr. Kenneth Ring has become a good close friend of mine, but because it's a good book. You want to read it now?
Sit down. Your legs might.
Yeah, well, no, I'll just stand, okay?
Whatever.
I'll be more helping. When I'm ready, I'll just stand up. Also, I should read this after I tell you a little more about it, but Ken Ring so very nicely wrote it here. It's half comedy and half truth. And he wrote, there is only one Tom Sawyer of America. And he said, this is his life at death, to a good buddy and a unique teacher. With love and gratitude to you, Tom, Ken Ring. And, you have to really know him and know me and read between the lines, but that's really nice. Also, the way he wrote, there is only one, and then in brackets he wrote O-N-E. And that is rather a representation of, do you have that book? Yeah. Of the book One, O-N-E, by Orest Bedri. The book, the author is only Orest in reference to that book, but his last name is Bedri. And you may or may not want to read a book like this. It's rather an overview, and we get to the table of contents here. All right, the book, of course, is entitled One, and very basically what that means toward is oneness, one God, the fact that you are one within the realm of God or the essence of God, that even though you are one as an individual, and we're all individuals, you are part of the one. With all these parables that you probably heard a lot about, what goes on that minute. I guess it is chapters: one freedom, one law, one law in mathematics, one law in physics. It's really interesting. This again is a type of book. Let me show you the last chapters. It's just will be, right? And you really be interested in reading something like that. But what that is, it's just this particular one is the physical relationships and reality. I mean, U of R type stuff. But it's for the people who are interested in that and who would be able to read that graph and understand its meaning. But then in the first chapter, it goes into details about in the last, since the turn of the century, it really starts out rather negative. And when I first started to read the first chapter, I thought, gee, do I even want to finish this book? Because you're talking about tragedies such as the time of Hitler and communism and the horrible things that have been done. And it goes into the horrible things that we collectively inadvertently do to nature and to the atmosphere and to societies. And but it real quickly turns around, and it's a very positive book. And if you're into reading books, go ahead, find it, read it. It isn't going to do you any harm. And it also goes into almost all of the basic well-known religions, and it takes the essence of the oneness out of each religion and equates them. It equates the Lutheran Church with the Catholic Church, with the Buddhist temples, with a Jewish synagogue, and it in our language, in your language, in real common layperson's type language, it's well written and it's worth reading. So much books. Oh, and also I have not read Ray Remouli's book cover to cover, since I made a couple of tape recordings of my experience, which was kind of prompted by way of several people. Elaine had a copy of the book, and her girlfriend were having coffee, and it was this two other couples. And I, for the first time, I went off and started talking about the experience that I had, and everybody was amazed, and they said, "Oh, it's just like in Raymond Moody's book. Is it life after life?" Right. Okay. And things were said like, "Oh, you're saying the same sentences or the same words in the same terms." So when I decided that, it would be worth making a tape recording of this, I tried writing it down and I couldn't do that. So I made a tape recording in segments. And I purposely didn't read any of the books. There's been a couple articles and, anything is lonely as the National Enquirer magazine, which, has some interesting things. I read it once in a while just for the sensationalism or seeing truck pictures and car crashes and stuff like that. And they have articles in there about parapsychology, which sometimes interests me. And then all of the books, such as the quality books like Raymond Moody and Kenneth Ring, and there'll be about 3 books coming out rather recently that expand on the scientific aspects of the near-death experience. And that's all okay. It depends on what you see or what you like. There's also been a couple of my friends who I've met in just the last 3 or 4 months who have had near-death experiences. This happened 3 years ago. I met the first other person in the world that I knew had a similar near-death experience for the first time last May. I said that wrong. Last April. Yeah, last April. And that was kind of consoling in a way because, maybe I'm not a freak. All this stuff happens, and it seems like I know so much about so many things, only having a high school education. It was a little uneasy at first. And it took quite a while to sort things out and come to realize that I'm just town Sawyer of America still, and I'm not some, goopy type psychic type person. Well, anyway, let me now describe what happened. I've already described how the truck came down on me, and some of the gory details is lying on my back like this. The frame of the truck came right across my chest right here and crushed my ribs down. And rather remarkably, almost like a miracle, a baby about that size, their bones are very soft, and they have the ability to actually bend their bones. In other words, a rib cage, and have them bend down like that. And the radiologist at Northside Hospital brought the radiographs or X-rays into where I wanted. He wanted to meet me, and he told me, he says, "I don't." He said, "Are you really? What was you at the time? 33? Yeah, 32. He said, it's amazing that your ribs were able to be crushed down that far and not snap, not break, because I didn't break any ribs at all. And also, I just have a couple of scars here, which are just from the skin irritation, but no lasting physical defects of any kind. I squeezed my liver a little bit, and there's nothing to do for that. You just go about your day. It's very minor. And I was really perfectly okay within 2 weeks after the accident. Also, the effect naturally is squish all the air out of me. Whoosh. And the fact that the truck moved, I knew something was pretty wrong. And Todd was right at the front bumper helping me, handing me tools and stuff. And I was able to just rush out, Todd, get help. It came out that fast. Like a little cartoon, I'm looking toward the front bumper, and his feet are going, right, like, oh my God. And which was good because Todd ran right into the house and right to the phone, dialed the paramedics or an armed ambulance, and said, "This is Todd Sawyer. I live at 150 Woodcroft Drive. My dad's under the truck and I need help right away." And they said, "Okay, Todd, hang up. We're on our way." And of course, on the way, the phone screamed to rain that was down the basement. She came running up. Then Todd ran outside. We live on a corner, our street tees into another street. We live right on the corner here. So there's basically 7 houses that are actually right across the street from us. So Todd ran outside and screaming and yelling, just attracting attention, help my dad, truck going, and so on and so forth. It brought a lot of people over, and of course they helped. I've been able to measure the time that this truck was on me, and it's basically 15 minutes. Really quite a long time to, hold your breath. especially when you don't have any breath in you. And that was from the phone call was electronically logged in at the paramedic center. And also when the ambulance arrived at the end of the driveway, they are on the radio and they say we're at the location, whatever that code number is. And that's logged in also. So it was roughly 15 minutes. And during that time, I was very, actually, understand, not comfortable, but I felt no pain. And it wasn't really that bad. It was this, huge, heavy thing on you, which is uncomfortable. And you felt the pressure. But because of the trauma and like the first stages of shock, you don't, like if someone cut their arm right off, they don't even feel it until they look down and see it's missing, that type of thing. And so let's see, where are we? Oh yeah. All right. I was perfectly conscious, and I also, having done in sport, had the ability to hold my breath for more than 3 minutes. So that was kind of a relaxing type thing, And that, I know it certainly doesn't take 3 full minutes to collapse a hydraulic jack, put it back in position, and jack it back up to take the truck off. So I was busy doing that. And of course, I couldn't talk or anything or make any sounds because I didn't have any air in me. So I was busy doing that, and the only problem was I had tightened, you have a relief set of hydraulic jack. I had tightened it up too much. So being in that position and also not being able to stand right up and loosen it, the problem came that I couldn't release the jack to collapse it, reposition it. But also since this experience, I've been working with the University of Michigan, the University of Connecticut, where they're doing research studies in the near-death experience, the phenomena of it, the psychological aspects of it, and also in reference to its implications that come from an experience like this. And some of the questions that they asked me were details. Hi, come on in, Mike.
Thank you.
Were that you can remember, that you can recall, how frantic did you get, especially at the point where you said, oh my God, I'm going to die. And I said, well, in answering the question, also realizing that never happened. And there was one time when I went unconscious for the 3rd time that I said, well, this is it. But it was just like shrug your shoulders and say, oh, well, this is it. And this is a little amazing because, you would try to picture yourself in that position and struggling or anything. I didn't. I was really, I had control of my facilities. I was able to manipulate my fingers and so on. I did go unconscious just momentarily. Because, at the point I was running out of air on 2 occasions. And I'm sure that, without knowing for sure, that it was just like close your eyes and then go like that. Hang on, wake up. And that happened. And at that point, after the 2nd time going unconscious, a friend across the street came underneath the truck. There was enough room for him to reach under and try to help me with the jack. The only problem with that was that he didn't know how to work a hydraulic jack. And that was frustrating because here I am, I knew how. And if you could only just help me enough to see what I was trying to do and twist the thing to collapse it. And of course, 2 weeks later, I went across the street and thanked him and showed him how to use a hydraulic. And he went out and bought one too. He has a camper. He went out and bought one just for that reason. But anyway, the 3rd time that I went unconscious, I was unconscious for quite a while, the longest duration of time. Also, in describing this, there's a problem with time, in that in this super state of consciousness, or this altered state of consciousness that I've referred to it as, there is no measurement of time, accurate measurement of time. This entire experience could very well have taken place in just a millisecond, just a split second. I'll make references to it seemed like 5 minutes of time, and those are only references, because we have to, the things that we construct in our human experiences. We have to measure everything and stop and think about it. You say, how good was it? Oh, it was so good, and then you proceed to measure something in that term. Or you say, oh, I wish it would last forever. And that meaning that you loved it so much, you want it to be part of you. But you say it in the form of a measurement as forever, as well as in distances. You say, well, it was real long. And you say, well, what? A plant, the growth of a plant was real long, you're talking about a couple inches or a couple of feet. But you say the trip was real long, you're talking about miles. And this perception that we have a natural desire to measure everything. And of the near-death experiencers who have had a similar experience, I really, tapping my shoulder, pat my back, I've been able to give descriptive terms and so on that seem to be pretty good, and you're able to deduce a lot of things from this. At any rate, at the third point, I went unconscious for this third time. As I went unconscious, and of course, this is rather gory, but it's because here you are with no air and your eyes are popping out of your head, and very embarrassing, my tongue was hanging out, and this is, unnatural and gross. But, and that did disturb me. That was one of the uncomfortable feelings. And it was like I was embarrassed because I couldn't get it back in my mouth. And then I saw rather flashes of colors. In other words, if you've ever been hit in the head, you know what I'm talking about. It's like boing, and they weren't specific and they weren't measured evenly like flashes of color. It was just like a flare of color. And then specifically purple, similar to the color of your blouse. And that may or may not have been because my face at that point was very, very purple. And see, having it expand and bulge out, I might have actually seen the color of my cheeks right here. I've kind of deduced that from considering it later on. At any rate, then I went unconscious, and it was just like in a dream, how the scenes change, or like on television, how the scenes change. It just happens. There isn't a flowing or a cutoff or anything. And what it seemed like was I just plain woke up. And when I woke up in total darkness, and everything was just black. And when I say total darkness, I mean completely black. And it would be, you can't get in that position in a conscious state. In other words, if you close yourself in a closet, it would be closed, but after a while, you might be able to see the edge of the door, or you know that the coat was hanging there or something. And what I'm describing is just complete total blackness. Another thing in this description, I have to establish something that is complete or to infinity or absolute. And then in the next sentence, I'll say that it was more so. And it's the only way I can, intensify the situation, because some of the things are paradoxes. In other words, you say something can't be, but then all of a sudden it is. You'll understand what I mean when I say this. Right, this complete blackness had no identifiable objects in it, and I described it in some of my cases. What you would imagine waking up in outer space would be like. But again, no identifiable objects like stars or anything. No temperature, and just like in a vacuum, a weightless vacuum of nothingness, just a complete nothingness. And understand it wasn't uncomfortable, it was comfortable. You weren't cold or hot or anything. And at that moment, just for a split second, there was a state of confusion. And it was like, you're in the world am I? But that's the only time where you, in your mind, you question anything. And it was just that instant, like, gee, what's this? Where am I? And you also were not, or I wasn't aware of being underneath the truck. In other words, I didn't know about the accident. I was just like looking around, and the feeling that you have is looking with your eyes. Right? It's been later on described as because you wouldn't be able to see with your eyes, they refer to it as your mind's eye, meaning that you, like when you sleep, you can see things, or if you dream, you can see things. So it's possibly with the use of this so-called quote, mind's eye. But anyway, you have the feeling that you're looking with both of your eyes, and you're not aware of your arms or the lower part of your body. You do sense a feeling of your head because you're thinking very clearly and you're seeing very clearly. And you also are aware that if there was temperature, you'd be able to sense that. But it isn't necessary. You don't consider it at all. The next thing that you notice is, and I've established that this is complete blackness. Sorry, George.
Want me to take her out? Jay, yeah.
Yeah. Then there's an instant where everything goes darker. And that's one of the paradoxes, because here you are in total blackness, how can it go darker? But we're just an instant it went darker. And then rather instantly after that, you have a feeling of motion. And it's not an uneasy feeling of motion like you sometimes get on a boat or sometimes in a car, but it's a forward type motion, and it's not, you get no feeling of acceleration like you would in a car or starting up, but it is an increase in motion or speed, and you have just a sudden feeling of motion, and it will be ever so similar to what I described it as being going 40 miles an hour in a very smooth car or a train. And you have no feeling of wind or anything. It's in a complete vacuum, and it turns out that this motion is inside this tunnel that is referred to so often, and it's a comfortable feeling. Then this total darkness, here's another paradox. There is no light involved, but you can sense or see the inside of this tunnel type affair. And as the motion increases, this void that you were in, which was total darkness, takes the form of a tunnel. And as I saw it, the tunnel was straightforward, and I have described it as large. And there's no percentage of near-death experiencers. There's no measurement for how many can measure it at all. But I have measured it as being large, anywhere from 1,000 feet wide to 10,000 miles wide. It's bigger than you can reach for sure if you extended your arm or something. And then this speed increases, and again, there's no feeling of acceleration. It's like a drawing or a magnetism through a vacuum. And the next perception that I had was, and I didn't know at the time, if you would ask me what is the speed of light, I'd say, well, it's something like 180,000 miles an hour or something real big. I didn't know exactly that it was 186,000 miles a second. And in Einstein's theory of relativity and his special theory of relativity, he has established through his theory that nothing at all, not material objects, but nothing at all, meaning light rays or anything, can go faster than the speed of light. It's an impossibility in physics. And since the turn of the century, they've been using that in our technology. But I described it as the speed attained as being at least or more than the speed of light. And somehow or other, I knew that the measurement would be the speed of light, whatever it was, being very fast. And that has become rather important later on in some of this investigation because there's been about, I'd say, probably no more than 15 people that, one thing I don't do, I don't have precognitions and tell people about. In other words, things that I may or may not know about the future, I don't usually predict things because I don't think that very often it's not nice to do. There's implications from things like that disturb people. But something that is happening right now is scientifically and mathematically, they are proving, in other words, show me, I have to touch it, feel it, see it, or prove it to me. They are proving that there is things that travel faster than the speed of light, which of course will then disprove Einstein's theories. And it'll be one of the most important discoveries, scientific discoveries of this century. And I'm also saying that if it isn't right this minute coming out, it will be out by next year. And this will be in the newspapers and so on. You'll be able to see it and say, hey, you told us about that before, and that'll be kind of fun or cool. But the implications of that will be extraordinary. And one of the aspects of that is that will imply that there is such a thing called, and this is a scientific term for it, will be superluminal communications. And what that means is super means faster than the speed of light, luminal communications. It can be referred to as communicating to you or your, in other words, with a typewriter or something, communications. And this will be very important. I've described it as the most important discovery of this century. And this will probably come out by next year, possibly this summer. Also, it will be discovered or proven, whoever they are, the scientists, will have set up an experiment, a scientific experiment. And they'll have some kind of things, measuring devices and so on, to be able to prove this scientifically. And they're doing it in Orsay, France. And I don't know where that is. Of course, it's in France, but that's where the University of Paris is. And the main scientist's name will be, can't think of it right now. Not very important. At any rate, here you are traveling through this tunnel at faster than the speed of light. And the measurement forward is only to infinity. I mean, if you look forward, you're looking to infinity. And then the next thing that you perceive is at the end of this tunnel, or to infinity again, is this little speck of light, and that it's far, far away, and it looks like you'd see a single star. And it's extremely bright. It's brighter than any star that you've seen. And of course, being in this crazy place, if you will, you then focus your eyes or your perception onto this light, and you're anticipating reaching it as naturally you would, because it's the only different thing. And also, since you're in this tunnel, naturally you're anticipating what's at the end of the tunnel, or am I going to get out of this tunnel? Yeah. So you focus on this light, and as it draws near, or you are drawn toward it, you have the feeling of extreme peace and contentment, and it's like the light rays, because as you see light, the rays reach you, and that's how you see it with your eyes, if you want to measure it that way, gives you this warm, not in temperature, but this warm, loving feeling. And you're eagerly anticipating getting toward it or getting near it. And then you have the realization that from that point, this is another paradox, because you've already traveled so far that you then go to infinity, and that's impossible, because infinity is the whole distance. And if you've traveled any distance, that should be part of the distance of infinity, and it is another paradox. As you get to the end of the tunnel, you have the only sensation you have is not a deceleration, but you slow down and come to a stop. Another minor little paradox. And then, as it appears to you, you don't see the end of the tunnel come to you or by you at all. You just blend into whatever the end of the tunnel is. And then you are aware that this tunnel is behind you, and that you might be standing, or you're sitting, or whatever body you have. You're on this platform. I was asked if there was a platform or anything under me to keep me still. And I said, well, yes, but it's indescribable. There's nothing there. It's like just an energy force or something like this, and there's nothing there. But if I had wanted to go lower or sit lower or go through, I couldn't. In other words, there was a barrier. And then being there, you then realize this before you. I'll try not to cry. Before you is this beautiful, magnificent light, and it's It's just pure white mass of the energy. I'm trying to be scientific about this because it's right at that point that you come to know that what you are looking at is, and it depends on how you perceive God. If you think God is Jesus, that's okay. And what you are looking at is the essence of Jesus. If you only think of God as God, and Jesus was a segment of God, in other words, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, separately, that's okay. And what you are confronted by are all of those things in the form of the oneness. And of course,
tell them what you prophesied before.
oh yeah, rather important. I was born a Catholic, and Elaine and my two kids are rather considered Catholic. In that Timmy and Tad are going to religious instructions and attending a Catholic church. And that's okay. I was a Catholic and made my communion and my confirmation, which is through the age of 12, as a Catholic. After that, shortly after that, I went, oh, well, I think I'll go to church today. And then I rather blended away from going to church. And I finally got to the point where I said, like this, through my teenage years and into my majority and right up to this experience, if I had to describe myself at all, I would have to say that I was an agnostic. In other words, I thought, oh, moly. I mean, when you die, everything gets dark, that's it, the show's over, you become fertilizer, you make flowers grow, and that's about the best thing you can do. In other words, there was absolutely nothing after you died. And I mean, this was okay for me, I was comfortable with that. And I believed that. And I didn't think, oh, gee, I'm going to miss heaven. I just said, I don't believe in heaven. There's no such thing. I mean, I can't see it, feel it, or touch it. And, it's okay for people to believe that and go to church because it makes a better person of them. It enhances their life. I agreed to that. But I didn't need it. It wasn't necessary. So I was an agnostic. Boy, did I change. And sometimes I jokingly refer to this experience as my rude awakening. And that I didn't request it, and it was brought about rather rudely, but it was definitely an awakening. Not only a spiritual awakening, but an awakening of perception that everybody should have, to focus on and have the ability to have. This light, let's see the description of it. Oh boy. I've described it as a pure mass of pure energy. And of course, I have to use the word pure because you might think of electricity as being energy and being in a form of pure. And we don't even know what electricity is or light. You can picture a pure light, unlike the sunlight, because that's yellowish or distorted. But pure light, that's the only way to describe it. And then, of course, with the perception that what we're talking about is the essence of God. And just there's no words. One of the big problems is in describing any of this, that there's no language, no words. And it's that you come to know the function of these essences. You come to know the realization of them. And that naturally there is no words. You can't translate it into language or even signs or pictures or anything in any abstract form, because nothing does it justice. We have, again, this measurement device that we're so obsessed with, including the word justice. We have to justify everything or use a system of justice. And in the essence of God, there is no justice. That's a tough one. You have to work on that for a while. There is no justice. Very basically because it's not necessary. You can't be punished in the state of heaven because you can't make a mistake in regards to malice. You can't do anything bad or wrong. It's amazing, to say the least. You experience then these things after the confrontation of the light happen absolutely simultaneously. And in describing them, I'll have to take a couple of minutes. The first thing that you are told, and when I say told, or when I say it said or you said or anything like this is not words, you don't move your mouth, not language. It's what's referred to as telepathy. And And it's in the form of superluminal telepathic communication. In other words, a telepathic link-up. And there's no time involved there. You can receive many, many messages instantly on different languages, different subjects, all at the same time. And your brain or your consciousness will comprehend this. The first thing that the light said to me was, relax. Everything is beautiful. Everything is okay. And this wasn't just told to me like, hey, by the way, relax. This was emanated to me, or you came to know whatever it said. You became whatever it said. And you were completely relaxed. You were completely beautiful. And that you were seeing something of pure beauty, you were also pure beauty. And I'm not saying that egotistically, like I didn't change the way I looked. I came to know pure, honest, true beauty and pure love. I have to use the word pure because we have, at times rather disgustingly, polluted the word love. Love has been used for, I love my car. Sexual act is referred to as love only. It's only a sex act compared to the love for a spouse, which encompasses much more. The way we distorted and polluted the word love, I have to say pure love, because as you've been taught in the scriptures and in your church services, the pure love of God. This is what we're talking about. Just nice. Beautiful. Then, again, simultaneously, but you're given rules and regulations. And among the things that you are told is you are at the light. The light is, and again, the words I use might not be the words you use. I mean, I'll have to say, this light is heaven. This is heaven. This light is God. This is God. This light is Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad. All these things, all these people, because Buddha and Muhammad were people on the earth of this reality that we call. So that since they are deceased, they are part of the light, part of God, part of heaven now. So what you are looking at or experiences is all these things. It's the one. And I'm trying to put it in order. You're then given these rules and regulations that if you're often, some of the experiencers that are often given a choice. Sometimes you're not given a choice. And in that stage, other experiencers see the essence or the reality of their, and these are all possibilities, their dead mother, Jesus Christ, whoever would be the most dear and the most loving and the most comfortable essence or person that they would like to be with to get information. In other words, if you're close to your mother, that's beautiful, that's fine. And when you have a real serious problem, you go to your mother because you can communicate with her on a one-to-one basis and feel comfortable. It might be your best girlfriend as opposed to your mother. And at times that's okay. I don't want to go off on a tangent onto that. But sometimes you feel more comfortable talking to your best girlfriend about certain things. And that's okay. And at that point, if that's what you would feel most comfortable with, that's who you would see. And it might just be, and I'm qualifying myself because of my perceptions prior to this experience, I might add all of my parents are living, my grandparents. My grandparents on my mother's side and my father's side were deceased before I was born, so I never knew them in this lifetime. And both of my parents are living and quite well, so they are dead. And I have no real, very close friends or relatives who have been deceased. Also, I've always had a rather scientific mind. I've had good perceptions, good coordination, and so on. And for me, it wasn't necessary to see anybody. In other words, I was lucky enough that I could then just see the essence of God in the form of just pure white light before me. Almost everybody is more comfortable if they have this experience with seeing an entity, if you will, I'll use that word, an entity or a spirit of either somebody or something. It might be a butterfly. If you love butterflies, you would see a butterfly and talk to it. And it's crazy sounding, but if you're most comfortable with that, that's what would happen. Now for me, communicating with this light, the light tells me, you have the choice to go back. If you make a forward motion, if you desire to become part of this light, all you have to do is think of or make a forward motion and blend into or come forward and become part of this light. And that's okay. You can make that choice. If that happens, you will then be dead, and you will not have the choice to return. And believe me, don't think that, oh gee, what am I going to do? And the decision, I mean, imagine for yourself, however you have perceived Jesus through God, imagine being right there. I mean, it's not a joke, and it's not a dream. It's real. I mean, this happened, this was real. This was more real than what I call this normality. You call it reality. I call it a normality because for us right now, it's normal. For me, I have had the opportunity to come to know something that is more real. Me back in the normality or reality. And it will simply happen. The minute you consider it, that's your decision. And it will be done to you or for you. And you will be back to your normality. At that time, and also simultaneously, you have what is referred to as the life review. And this is kind of cool. I mean, really cool. I mean, you try to think back. I can remember back when I was 5 or 2 or 3 years old, and usually either a traumatic experience or something real joyous that you can remember that little segment of your life. I mean, stop and think right now. How far back can you remember of your natural life? Might be 5 years old or so. Usually, maybe around 5 or 6 years old, or kindergarten, or sometimes earlier. You can remember a car accident, maybe, or something. But here, all of a sudden, and this is described just like being in this room, and that whole wall being a movie screen, and you have your entire life flash before you as a movie with sound and often with feeling. In other words, you're outside looking at it, but you are the character that you are and you're experiencing. Did you have a question? Yeah. Your entire life. Everything. And an experiencer such as myself, this became rather unimportant. And I can't then make a movie of right from my creation and including my birth, my physical birth, and then every single minute of every single day. I can't do that now. I don't retain the exact perception plan. But among the things that I have retained and can joke about and so on are, just mostly wonderful. There's like, a few of those, the broken thumb, which you wouldn't want to reproduce. But the joyous times, like when I was not quite 2 years old, my mother had purchased this it was like a little suit. I mean, a little jacket, a little beanie jacket, real cute thing. And about the age of the little girl that was here, who I called George. At any rate, the scene was, and this I can remember, and I shared it with my mother, and she was ecstatic about it. Because she couldn't remember it on her own. But me talking about it, she then zeroed in and then recalled, that day, that time. And she had dressed me and was oohing and ahhing, because I was a cute little boy. And my father was standing, and watching. And they were just, talking previous, and then there was a little quiet, and she buttoned it up, and then, oh, look at that. And my father, you'd love him, but Typical smart remark, sarcastic smart remark. Yeah, well, like this. And the words I won't share with you because you're personal and they should only be shared with my mother. But I told my mother exactly what she said. And then I told my mother and my father exactly what he said, the sarcastic remark. But it was done without malice. I mean, he was enjoying himself. And that's kind of fun. That's charming. And, it was more than like being right there again. I mean, you relived it, even though you were like watching it on a movie screen. And that brought you right up to the time of the accident. But as I can remember it, and of course, see, I'm not sure because I just may not be remembering it. I don't remember reliving the accident. In other words, it's up to the time of the accident and to where I was or in what condition I was in at that moment. Right after the life review, and oftentimes for other people, now there was no judgment of any kind. And I might add, and rather egotistically I'm saying this, is that if I had my life to live over again, I would do all the bad little naughty things I did, all the break thumb type routines and everything. In other words, I enjoyed my life so far. I always have. And even when I was an agnostic, I enjoyed myself. I liked who I was at that time. And the reason for that was I just didn't know him. I was ignorant of certain things. Again, qualifying why I was an agnostic. But I enjoyed my natural life. It was fun. I had a lot of fun. I've done a lot of crazy things. Then, and this gets kind of off on a tangent, and I don't usually talk about it, so I'll only say that I did, in fact, make a forward motion. And just consider what you want about that. Because this was one of the confusing and questionable things when I made my first tape. And I didn't include making that forward motion at that time. I said it at the end of the tape. And I didn't realize that I said it at the end of the tape. Because logically thinking, the fact that I'm here right now, I had to make the decision to return because I'm here. If I had not made that decision, I couldn't be here. That's our logic way of thinking. But things have come about and turned out that, in fact, I did make a forward motion, which leans toward the idea that, in spite of loving my family, I mean, look at them, they're cool guys, including my wife, who lives up with me. I have so much to come back for. I'm having a ball. I love doing this. I love going to work. I've done everything from a garbage man to a carpenter to you name it, but I've enjoyed it all. But I made the decision to make that forward motion, and it was at that time that, and I have to kind of describe this, the light was segregated from me at that point, and there's some type of a barrier. For me, it was just either a space of nothingness, and the light was there. And I knew that I could not reach out and touch it or go forward. If I did, that was a major event. Other people have a stone wall, a door, a gate. It doesn't really matter. That's only symbolism. But there's some type of barrier. Well, I decided to make that forward motion. And it was at that time that I felt this essence of this light coming over the top of my head and like blending into it. And boy, it's only been the last couple of weeks actually that I've been able to even talk this far without starting to cry. I mean, it is so emotional, and by talking about it many times, making tapes and being questioned about it, I calloused myself so that I don't have the normal, natural emotions of just breaking down and crying. If someone is in your church and the service is going on and they suddenly just, and cry, I mean, don't be embarrassed for them, or don't be embarrassed being next to them, because very often what they are doing is having a spiritual feeling, not necessarily a complete awakening, as it's sometimes termed, but that's okay, that's beautiful. And we're all beautiful people, and we have all our natural animalistic emotions. I mean, we have moments of anger, we have moments of extreme love, and all of it's okay. Don't be embarrassed for somebody else, and don't ever be embarrassed yourself. Sometimes it is embarrassing, and that's okay. I mean, if you're out at a party, and suddenly you get emotional, like your boyfriend has walked out on you, and then here you are stuck with 30 kids your same age, and oh God, this is so embarrassing, and you might start to cry. And don't worry about it. I mean, you'll have that bad feeling for that time, and the next date will either be with the same guy or another guy, and that's okay. You know how things turn out. I mean, you've already experienced it. So often I say, oh, and that's okay. But so many things are okay. And the thing is to relax and enjoy your life, enjoy who you are. Come to know yourself if you can. And oftentimes I've preached, if you will, to when things are going a little rough for you and you're having certain perceptions that are difficult for you, slow down. If you can, go off by yourself and slow down. And just think. Sometimes you use the word meditation. Don't be afraid of that word. It's not a bad word. I thought it was before my experience. If anybody would have said the word meditation or Eastern mystics or psychic phenomena or precognitions, all this stuff, I would have said, okay, see you later, and walked away. I said, I'm cool, I don't need that stuff. Don't be afraid of anything. I'm not advocating it. I'm not saying go out and try to become an Eastern mystic because you won't be able to. That would really be foolish to just blurt out in college or something like that. But don't be afraid of the words and the terminology, especially meditation. Now, I don't personally know your exact scriptures, but in your scriptures, they will refer to meditation, spiritual meditation. It could only be in the form of prayer. And also, don't be afraid to pray. I mean, me, Tom Sawyer, I'm telling someone else to pray. I mean, if you could have known me driving around in my race trucks, doing brodies and sit-ups and everything. And if I would have come across somebody that was praying, okay, let's go down to the next street. Don't be afraid to pray. It should be private. I would agree with that. Do it on your own. Do it in your own way necessarily. I do advocate that you do follow your church. For me, I can be comfortable in a Jewish synagogue, just standing there before the wine and bread, saying, "You ready to knit? Among other things, you come to know different languages and perceptions of religion. The religious implications of a near-death experience is a whole other subject. I can also sit along or be in a position alongside a Buddhist monk and honestly feel comfortable. I'm not a Buddhist monk, and I would have so much respect for him doing his thing. Hi. Am I going? Doing his thing, whatever it might be. But what I'm trying to tell you is I've got the fantastic ability, if you will, to be absolutely comfortable in any religious circumstances as long as it's honest. That's the most important thing. For God's sake, be honest with yourself. And if you're praying in church, say today, and if you fold your hands this way or whatever you do, and you're praying because everybody else is, and you're saying the words with them, and you're thinking about your hairdressing appointment, or you're thinking about going and working on your buddy's race car, well, you're not being honest, and those prayers are not doing you much good, and whoever you're praying for, if you're praying for somebody else or just to God, you're not doing that justice, that word justice again. It's important to be honest with yourself and, again, come to know yourself. At any rate, let me get back to my experience. At the time that I confronted the light and blended into this light, it was, well, I don't want to use the word traumatic, but it was very, very, this was complete love, it was complete everything. I mean, it was heaven, what we're talking about. How can it be more? By becoming part of that light. And it was more of everything that I've described. And it was at that time that, it's funny, like my brain, especially the right side of my brain, was just bombarded with pieces of information, like garbage in and garbage out on an electric computer. And it's the function garbage in means you fill it with all the essences of material. Then you can use it and have it spell out sentences or whatever the function is to be. This information is then, oh my word, I can't categorize the categories, but they're religious implications. I can understand because of my, negative religious upbringing, in other words, I wasn't good enough to do justice to the Catholic religion that I was supposed to be following. I can't quote enough scriptures to be comfortable. I'm embarrassed about that. I've neglected that. But on the same token, because of this experience, I know segments of scriptures that I can say things about the Quran, I can say things about the Bible, I can say things about both the Old and New Testament, and they come in segments too. It isn't all the whole story. But during that time in the light, I came to know complete, total knowledge. And if you look in your scriptures, in your church services, somewhere in there, they refer to God as being all knowledge or total knowledge. I don't know what the words are, but they'll refer to God as being naturally so. How do you describe God or heaven? It's total knowledge, but that feeling that I had, like all of a sudden, I became the most magnificent computer, and at that point, I had complete knowledge. In addition to being that and doing that, you can zero in on or focus on specific things. And you can, in other words, say, all right, I know that I'm part of God now. I'm with God, I'm in God, I'm part of God, I'm in heaven. Was there a real Jesus Christ, and was he your son? And very bluntly and basically, this is the most important question. It's usually the first question anybody asks in relation to the religious implications of Jesus Christ and Christianity, and the answer is yes. Yes. Everything that you have read about and been told or heard things about that, all true, and it's all very, very real. I had many other questions that I can't share with you. They're either too personal or they might possibly offend you because they were of such a nature that you probably wouldn't even be interested in. That also includes things in physics, into quantum mechanics, which I just started school last May, and I've got to do this crash course in math to be able to read what I've written down. But they're functions of laser technology, nuclear energy, things like that, and many of those things are negative, and I have to deal with them in my own way. And that's all okay. That's all happening now, and of course that's another reason why I'm doing a lot of research with many universities. Of course, the school I'm going to is Empire State College, which is really rather local, and it's like a home study course. And but that's sufficient for what I need. I got to meet my first real physicist about June, somewhere around June or July. And that was a thrilling experience. Boy, these guys were, they're real top-notch physicists. Two of them were from the New Haven, Connecticut Laser Research Lab, so they're big guys. And gee, I got to talk to them, and not only were they just so nice, they helped me so much. And they explained I had written the figure omega. Now most of you know omega is shaped like this, right? Well, I knew that was a Greek symbol, and if you're into fraternities or sororities, that might be one of your symbols, and it's omega. And I wasn't sure. I knew the function of what it meant to me, but I didn't know what to call it. And it turns out that was used in physics as the word entropy, which if you're in high school now, you probably hear about entropy, the aspects of entropy. And then it also equals chaos, which is part of entropy. So much for physics. But it goes on and on with things like that, and I'm having a ball. I'm really having a ball. The return trip, very bluntly, because there was a return trip. Now the implications are that I was then sent that as about 40% of the near-death experiences are. They possibly see their mother who has died, and the mother says, "Stop, don't come any closer, it's not your time, you have to go back." And instead of having a decision, they are told that they have to go back. And for me, I was simply made to come back. I thought previously that I decided to come back. But anyway, the return trip was everything in reverse, exactly in reverse. In other words, I was positioned this way toward the end of the tunnel where the light is, and the tunnel then whoosh. But as opposed to, and again, there's no time involved, where the trip forward was faster than the speed of light, the trip backward was faster. And it went from start to finish like, yeah, all right. Yeah, I have to describe this. I usually make a loud bang sound and clap my hands. It was just bang like that. That's the only way to describe it. It was similar to what you might have experienced in a severe electric shock. In other words, the return trip was just condensed like in a funnel. It just, right back, and then poof, I was still under the truck. And it was at that time that the truck was finally lifted off me enough that two men could grab the creeper, which had sunk right down into the asphalt. I mean, because of the weight on these four little wheels, and they had to yank it, to slide the creeper out, which gave me that little extra room, and then I was pulled out feet first out from under the truck. And that wasn't much fun because I had come back into my body, or my consciousness at any rate, and here were these bolts through the frame of the truck and in between my ribs. And hey, I'm nailed to this thing, don't pull me off. Whoa! But anyway, I was extricated at that point. The paramedics showed up and everything took care of itself. And I was conscious, and I didn't say a word about anything that happened because at that instant, I didn't know what happened. There always seems to be a duration of time, anywhere from a half hour to 3 days after an intense experience like this, that you're even able to then comprehend what transpired during whatever brought this on. And this experience can be brought on by you sitting right there, right now, on your own. And that would usually be construed as a spiritual awakening, because there would be no measurement that you had your heart stop or that you died or anything like this. It's not necessary to die to have this experience. The most famous person who I can refer to that I know so well is St. Francis of Assisi, John in the Bible, Ezekiel. I mean, I'm just throwing these out because you've at least heard of these people's names. If you're interested, reread the Bible in parts. Reread Ezekiel. And now that you've heard the word light and essence and magnificence and all these words, reread it. And you'll be able to pick up a lot more. You'll be able to see the reality of what transpired to this person, Ezekiel. And that's fantastic. It's fun. One of the things I've done is, I have it right here. Can I just go?
Do I need to put up the spirit in church tonight? We're having wait. Well,
yeah, okay.
All right. What's your next week?
Okay, well, it's keeping longer. Yeah, okay. Well, take care. What's your name, Scott? Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, I think this picture.
What do you think? Did I do any justice?
Yeah.
I thought you could fill the back next week.
Oh.
Bring it next week.
I don't know.
You can take it down. I'll probably need it back next week.
I kept it and
You just need to get back to Kona. The next week.
What?
I didn't think you had done.
Alan,
Yeah, pardon?
how do you do this?
Yeah.